All right, and so for the whole month of November, being a big month of, Thanksgiving, appreciation, things like that, we're going to focus on one thing for the whole month of November, and it's this: how to be happy. How to be happy. Now, this is something so simple, yet if we look at the world around us, or if we're honest and we look at ourselves, right? If we look at ourselves, we're seeing a lot of people that are struggling with such a simple emotion, right? And think about happiness, guys. Happiness is so universal for all of us. Deep down, everything that you do. This is a big statement to say, and I'm kind of like really making a broad statement here. But think about it. Think about what you do on a regular day basis. How much of what you do, how much of what you don't do is motivated by you wanting to be happy? Think about it. The shows that you watch, do you put on a show just like, oh yeah, this is going to put me in a bad mood. Yeah, I'm going to watch this. So it's like, do you do that when you was like, what, I'm hungry, what am I going to eat? Yeah, I'm going to eat that one thing that's going to make me sick for the rest of the day. Yeah, that's what I was like, we don't do that, right? We think the food that we eat, the things that we want to do at least, or try, like the shows that we watch, or whatever we do, even the friends that we make, let's be honest, if you're still in school, then whatnot, the friends that you make, what, do you not make those friends in order because you think you're going to be happy? These friends are going to make me happier than these friends, right? This is going to make me happier than that. This activity is going to make me happier. Everything, there's so much that we do is motivated by this simple desire to be happy. It's universal. I mean, it is so universal that this phrase made it into America's founding document, but it says it a little different, right? What is it? Thomas Jefferson and many of the founders, they wrote this phrase, right? It says, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights among these, which means that there's more than the ones I'm going to list here. But you guys know them. If you know them, what are they? Among these are life, liberty,
and the pursuit of happiness.
Pursuit of happiness, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson and them, they declare this is a fundamental right that we have from our God. This right to life that we, all of us, created equal, should have an opportunity. We all have a right to live. And the only way that we can live is when we have liberty. And the only way to have liberty, and what is liberty? The liberty to do what? The liberty to pursue the things that bring us joy. The liberty to pursue the hopes and dreams that we feel will satisfy our desires. Not having someone else tell you what to do, but you having the freedom and the liberty to choose for yourself what you want to pursue. But do you know, little fun fact, I like this stuff. If you don't, I think you will. Watch this. Do you guys know that wasn't the original phrase? That didn't make it in the, that was not in the rough draft. The life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness was not in the rough draft. You ready? So, you never know. Look, I want to be generous today. You never know if you're going to be on Jeopardy, right? Or something like that. And this would have been the $1,000,000 question. And then you're going to get it right because I told you the answer, and so we split it 50-50, right? That's only fair. That's only fair, right?
Yes,
we split the winning. That's only fair. But listen, the original phrase was that God has given us endowed us with these rights, and these rights are life, liberty, and property. That was the first phrase. Did you know that? There you go. Life, liberty, and property was in the rough draft. Why property? They would say property because, see, you can't have liberty, you can't have freedom if you cannot choose to do what you want to do with your own stuff. Like, there is no freedom, there is no liberty if the government can come in and take your stuff and do what you want with your stuff without your permission. There is no liberty if a person can step in and do what they want with your stuff. That's not freedom there. That's chaos. The other side isn't freedom. That's tyranny. So the only way that you can have true liberty is with private property. But why didn't property make it into the final draft? What's easier? I'll tell you the answer to that one too. See, I'm super generous today. We're learning some stuff. Listen, why didn't they make it into the final draft, private property? Because of this. Because if they would have left it as property, we all have the right to life, liberty, and property. A group of people in our country would have never had the chance to pursue happiness. Here's the situation. During that time, when they spoke of property, right, it was a big conversation. I mean, Samuel Adams was big on religious liberty and private property and doing freedom. But see, here's the thing, that we're a group of people in America that viewed people as property. They declared that as property. It says, I can own an individual and have them do what I want them to do. They don't have a choice. They have no life. They have no liberty. They are my property. I own them. And so the founders knew that. They knew that was a problem. Even though they believed in private property, they did not want to. They disagreed. Many of them disagreed with that definition of people. I mean, when the phrase said all men are created equal, they weren't saying all men with a certain shade of paleness. They meant it. And so they changed the phrase from property to the pursuit of happiness, because they did not want to give anyone a legal right to say, ooh, look, it's in our founding document, I have the right to property, this person is my property, you don't have a right to tell me what to do with my stuff. So they changed it. They changed it. This is why even so many abolitionists to the slave movement, and not only during that time, but even years later with Frederick Douglass, during the Civil War, they would say that the Declaration of Independence was an anti-slavery document. That little phrase, by changing it from property to the pursuit of happiness, helped to pave the way for more people to have the chance to pursue happiness themselves. That little thing there. So they changed it to the pursuit of happiness. But I even love that idea. Look how beautiful that phrase is. Do we have a right to be happy? Even that, I was like, do we have a right to be happy? That's dangerous phrases, because if you have a right to be happy, when you declare something a right, that gives now the government an opportunity to define that for you, or to control that. I love the phrase, we don't have the right to be happy. We have the right to pursue it according to our own individual definitions or desires. We have the right to pursue what we, not someone else, does. But even that, look at that phrase, pursue happiness. Guys, how hard is it to be happy? Think about that. Happiness is so simple. Yet how come it's so hard for so many people to be happy? You know, though it's difficult to find, it's not impossible. See, we search, I wrote this down, I want to say it. If we search for happiness, we have to learn to avoid this one mistake. In fact, that's what we're going to talk about for the whole month, is how to be happy. Because if it was easy to be happy, I wouldn't talk about this. I wouldn't need to spend 4 weeks saying, what does God have to say about being happy if it was easy? But let's be honest, it's hard. So many of us, in the pursuit of what makes things happy and what makes us happy, we seek for it. Then we think we found it, only then to be disappointed by it, because it doesn't meet our expectations. Right? We've done this all the time. We say things like, oh, if I only could what? Fill in the blank. If I could move out of this neighborhood into that neighborhood, then I would, right? If and then phrases, right? If I only made more money, then. If I didn't have this husband, then. If I could only have kids, then. If my kids could move out, then, right? So many other phrases. All these ifs and thens. All these ifs and thens. We say, if I had this job, then. If I could get into that college, then. If I had this career, then. If I didn't have this boss, then. We always say these ifs and thens. That's why it is so, this pursuit of happiness, it's a journey. It can be hard. And so the one thing that we're going to talk about, and here's the one thing that we're going to focus on today when it comes to being happy, is this. If we want to search for happiness, we need to avoid this one common mistake. We all do. I've done it. Still tempted to do it, and I guarantee you do it. And it's this. It's hard to be happy when you're always looking and focusing on what you don't have, rather than appreciating what you do have. It's hard to be happy if all you want to do, if you spend all of your focus in focusing on what you don't have, rather than appreciating what you do. You fix that, and you can learn to be happier today than yesterday. And so we're going to look at a letter that's in the Christian scriptures, in a letter that the Apostle Paul writes to a man named Timothy. Paul is Timothy's mentor. And around this time, Paul's a whole lot older. Timothy's kind of getting started. And the thing with the Apostle Paul, Paul talks a lot about happiness. He uses this unique phrase that some of us, we may understand. Some of you might not like the phrase, but hopefully you're going to get a new perspective of what this word means. But he speaks on how to be happy a lot. And shows and points, look, it's not like this, don't focus on that. Here's how to be happy. And so, in fact, he even says in one of his letters, we're not going to read it today, in one of his letters to this church in Philippi, in the city, or this Greek city there, he would tell them, like, look, before Jesus, I had an idea of what it meant to be happy. He had a career that was amazing. He was like at the top of his class. I mean, he had notoriety, he had fame, he had money, he had power. Paul had everything. Paul had everything that you can imagine. All right, he had what the world, what he would consider, what somebody else consider would be, man, if I had that then, I would be happy. But in one afternoon, his whole world changed. Everything he thought that made him happy, when he had this one moment, in one random afternoon, it wasn't random, on a specific day actually, he met Jesus on the side of the road. And his perspective on happiness changed. Because he saw something that very few people have ever seen. Someone who was dead, now alive. Now, if you're a Walking Dead fan, not like that, okay? I mean, if you've seen somebody dead who is now alive, but they still look dead, that's not the scenario. This is somebody who he knew, Paul knew, because Paul lived during this time. He knew that this Jewish Messiah, upstart, teacher, troublemaker, had been taken care of by the Roman Empire. He was dead. In fact, it was so infuriating for Paul because Paul was a purist. Paul saw what Jesus was as a corruption of his Jewish faith that he loved so much. And so here's this guy named Jesus, and he's dead and gone and buried. But yet now there's this rumor that he rose from the dead, and now he sees, after now months and months and a few years of this post-Jesus thing, this Jesus is gone, long gone, but yet here are his followers, and they're still causing headaches in Jerusalem, in other cities. It's spreading like a virus, and Paul takes it upon himself to say, no, I'm going to do something about this. It wasn't making him happy to see what was happening with the church, because for him, he thought, for me to be happy is to serve God in this way, and I'm going to serve God by imprisoning and killing and abusing these people who say they are serving God. Everything changed when he met Jesus. And in fact, he writes in this letter to this church in Philippi, he says, everything that I thought made me happy, now I consider as flat garbage. That's my phrase, okay? So he literally said rubbish. I mean, you could probably use more harsher phrase. He says, everything in my life before Jesus that I thought made me happy, I now consider as garbage. I consider it worthless. Everything that I put on such a pedestal, I realize had no value. None of it matters compared to knowing Christ. It says, what I thought made me happy does not make me as happy as Jesus, as knowing Jesus. And so he wants this protege, Timothy, to understand this. So he writes 2 letters. We're going to look at one of them today. And he's writing to Timothy because, see, Timothy is a person of influence. Timothy is actually, he's a mixed race individual. He is half Jew, half Greek, which made it controversial for him to kind of, in some circles, to be like that. So he had to deal with a lot. He was a very young man as well. And see, Timothy was a pastor of a city, of a church in Ephesus. So if you've ever read in the Bible or heard of the book of Ephesians, that was a letter to the church in Ephesus that Timothy was the pastor of. And so here's Timothy, and by the way, the church in Ephesus was the largest church in the known world at this time. Within only a handful of years, or maybe with a couple decades even, of Jesus' resurrection. The largest church of the known world at this time. Timothy is the pastor at that church. And so Paul wants to make sure that not only Timothy understands the value of how to be happy, but he wants to make sure he can teach others and help them understand what it is. Because, see, being Ephesus, was unique about Ephesus was it was a rich port city. Okay, so imagine, like, when you look at Florida, you think of, like, like Tampa, Miami, these big metropolitan centers, New York, right? Any of those big cities, Boston, if I let some out, whatever, you guys get it, Los Angeles, whatever, these big, rich cities that have a lot of money, a lot of influence, a lot of culture. Ephesus was one of those cities. And a lot of people inside of the church were struggling with 2 things. One, they were struggling with identifying their happiness with their stuff, because there was so much of it. You see it, they saw it in the culture like we see today, right? Trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to keep up with people, right? You see, ooh, they look so happy. I want that too. I want to live that life. Ephesus was no different back in the day, 2,000 years ago. So some struggled with saying, ooh, look at all this stuff. Stuff will make me happy. But then others were struggling because they were taught bad theology, a bad understanding of God. And in this church, some people were thinking that, godliness is a symbol, is a sign of, wealth is a sign of my godliness. Meaning, the richer I am, that means the more holier I am. Alright? That was the idea. That if I'm serving God well, then I should be, making some money. And they would associate the negative. If I wasn't making money, if I was poor, then I must be a poor believer. And that's not true. It's bad theology, it's bad thinking. So let's look at what Paul wanted to make sure Timothy understood this, so everyone understood this. So now you and I can understand this. Let's look at what Paul had to tell Timothy. He says in 1 Timothy 6 through 11, he says, but godliness with contentment is of great gain. So there's that word, godliness. Because they thought that, godliness with gain. Godliness with stuff. He's like, no, not godliness with stuff will make you happy. No, see, godliness with, what's this word? Say it with me. Say contentment. Contentment. Godliness with contentment is of great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and we cannot take anything out of this world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and have pierced themselves with many pangs. So meaning they have walked away from their faith, and now their life is worse than what it was. But as for you, Timothy, O man of God, flee from these things, flee from these thinkings, flee from this form of feeling. Instead, pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, steadfastness, and gentleness. So we can go back to the first phrase. There's that word right there, contentment. Paul talked a lot about contentment. And what does contentment mean? Being content is being happy. But being happy how? Being content means being happy for where you are and what you have. That's being content. Being content with where you are and what you have. A lot of people are not content with where they are because maybe they have goals. They have things that they want to do, things that they want to achieve. Now, is Paul saying, hey, you can't have drive, you can't have determination, you can't have goals on, that you want to achieve and grow? Is that what he's saying? Is he saying, look, you don't need to better yourself? Look, you're good just the way you are. Stay that way. Is that what he's saying? Be happy with where you are and settle. Listen, being content does not mean settling. It just means that you understand the process. Guys, look, there's too many people out here that are unhappy with where they are. Because they look to the future and they see, man, I want to be this. Or I'm not there, here's the key word, yet. I'm not there yet, and so we're so impatient. And we're like, I'm not there yet, and so we're not happy with where we are, because then we say, oh, if I was only there, if I could only do that, if I was just then I would be. No, see, wrong. Being content focuses on understanding where you are. Being content means not looking to where you are in the future and saying, man, I'm not there yet. No, it's you look at your past, and you say, man, look how far God has brought me. I might not be where I am, but I'm definitely not who I used to be. And you appreciate the process. You appreciate where God has brought you now. You see that? Doesn't mean that, oh, I'm good here, I'm just going to coast. No, it just means you're appreciating the process. This is where you're at. Again, with stuff, right? And it says, hey, be content with what you have. Look, you got some clothes, you got some food. Be happy with that. Be happy with that. And then he goes into this phrase, right? He talks about the rich. But notice this phrase I highlighted. What is it? Is he ridiculing the rich? No, he's not. What is he warning us? Say with me, desire. The desire to be rich. Let me ask you a question. Who desires to be rich? Do rich people desire to be rich? Or do poor people desire to be rich? You probably say both, right? Yeah, poor people too. Like, think about it. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's rich people who want to be richer, right? I'm pretty sure there's some rich people who like being rich, okay? Right? But notice when he says the desire to be rich, he's also warning those who don't have as much. He's saying, be careful if you think that wanting more is going to make you more happy. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but whatever, it works. Right? And so be careful with wanting more, thinking that that's going to lead you to happiness. And so he focuses on this thing. But notice that he goes into what? this thing, probably one of the most misquoted verses in the whole Bible. You know how many times, notice it is the love of money. Who's ever heard? Money is the root of all evil. Who's raised your hand if you've ever heard that one? They're wrong. It's wrong. It's not like that. They quote the Bible and they say, oh, it's in the Bible. God said. I love that phrase. And look, God said that. Money is the root of all evil. No. It's the love of money. The desire, the craving. Why do people love money? Why do we love money?
Because you can get things.
Because of what money can do for you. Money, for some people, they love money. They love having a big savings account because, oh, I love how this money makes me feel secure about my future. I love money because it makes me feel at peace, knowing that I have 2 months worth of my income saved just in case I lose my job. I don't know. Ooh, love that problem. Anyways, right? We love money because of what it does for us. The things that we buy, the clothes that we buy to make us feel better about ourselves, the food that we eat to make us feel good, right? The activities that we do, the clubs that we join, all these things. So many of us love money. Why do we love money? Because we love what money does for us. We love it. And what he's saying here, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. See, listen, guys. You know what evil is? Here's Christians, we call evil sin. And sin and evil have one common thread. At the core of what sin is, you know what sin is? Selfishness. Selfishness is at the root of what sin is. It is you wanting things your way. You wanting to do things to benefit yourself. That's what sin is at its core. It's selfishness. And anything that we call, and people may say, oh, that's a sin, that's a sin, that's a sin, it's all meant and done to serve yourself. That's sin. Serving yourself. And so he says here, look, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Because you're going to find and put your hope and your happiness in something temporary. You're going to put your hope and happiness in something that isn't always going to be there. You're putting your hope and happiness in something that has an end, rather something eternal. It's not enough. It's not enough. When you view what you have as a means to your happiness, I wrote this down, I want to share this with you. Listen, if you view what you have, like the money, whatever it is, if you view your what you have as a means to happiness, you will take your stuff to get more stuff, only to realize you can never have enough stuff.
Wow.
Right? That's what that is. We love money because it is something, it is stuff that we use to get more stuff. Stuff gets more stuff to make us happy. No, you're never going to have enough stuff. You'll never have enough stuff. There's even a phrase, I'm pretty sure some of you have heard it. The haves and the have-nots, right? Have you ever heard somebody complain, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer? When we just finished through a political season, I think, Florida, golly, so whatever. And so, just in limbo, why do we Floridians got to be all full of drama every single time? We love the attention, right? We love the attention. Florida loves the attention. Anyways, we're on the election season. So sad. Anyways, so being that we just talked about this, and there's always around election season, all politicians love to use the phrases, things like, hey, the haves and the have-nots, right? And they pit the haves against the have-nots. Like, hey, they have more than you, not fair, right? And so if you could have what they have, you'd be happier. And hey, I promise, I can do that for you. Vote for me, right? And so that's usually the phrase. And so we always put the haves and the have-nots. But listen, guys, if the have-nots could realize, this is crazy. If the have-nots, too many have-nots are jealous of the haves. Not realizing that despite all that they have, they are just as happy as them. Mm-hmm. All the time. If we could only realize that. There are too many people, too many have-nots, jealous of the haves. All that they have. And if they can only realize that despite all that they have, they are just as unhappy as them. So stuff is never enough. When it comes to being happy, guys, stuff is never enough. How we view and handle our wealth like that, it says a lot about our hearts. It says a lot about where we place our faith. We're going to look at one other letter. Now, this letter was written in a different time, but within a few years of the one that Paul wrote to Timothy. Now, this person, we don't know who the author is. In fact, Christian scholars, there's debates on who we think it is, but there's no one knows who's the author of the book of Hebrews. And so here, Paul is writing a letter to non-Jews, helping them with the Timothy one, saying, hey guys, happiness is not found in your stuff. Happiness is not found anywhere else. You cannot be happy if you focus on what you don't have rather than what you have. But then now this author for the Hebrews wants them to understand something even deeper. And he wants them to understand about happiness. Again, you see a similar theme. And so let's look at what the author of Hebrews 13 had to say. Hebrews 13, 5 and 6. It says, keep your life from what?
Love.
The love of money. There it is again. Different person. Repeating the same thing. That keep yourself from the love of money. And be what? Content. There's the phrase again. Keep yourself from the love of money. Be content with what you have. For he has said, who is the he? This is Jesus. This person now is quoting Jesus. For Jesus said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? So we see a similar phrase, right? Stay away from the love of money. Be content with what you have. Realize that stuff cannot get you enough stuff. All right? Stuff will never be enough to make you happy. But this person adds one other thing that Timothy does as well. But I love how this author puts it. He goes, again, focus and be content on what you have. For God said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So what is the author pointing to? What is the author trying to remind them? What else do you have? You have Christ.
Amen.
You have Jesus. And Paul was trying to say, look, you will never be happy if you focus on what you don't have. You learn to be happy when you appreciate what you have. Well, the writer in Hebrews is saying, listen, you will learn to be happy when you appreciate what you have in Jesus. When you appreciate what you have in Jesus, you will learn to be happy. And what do we have with Jesus? We have a what? A helper, a relationship there. We have a relationship with this God. Notice what does Jesus say? I'm going to never leave you nor forsake you. Guys, what does money do? Money comes and goes, all right? Money comes and goes. For some of us, it just burns right through our wallet, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm this person. I have to be careful. I mean, if I got cash in my wallet, it's like itching. It's like I can't, I gotta spend it, all right? And so there's people like that. Money comes and goes. Our stuff comes and goes. But what is our God going to come and go? He said, no. What do we have with Jesus? He says, I'm never going to leave you. I'm never going to come and go. I'm here with you. What else did he say? Then we can confidently say we have what? The Lord is my helper. Why do people love money? Because money helps us. Money helps us to do things, buy this, do that. Again, none of this am I saying it is not godly to be rich. No. It's different. It's different how you approach it. Because there's rich people who are holier than some poor people depending on their approach to stuff.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
And so vice versa. And so there is no sin to be rich. That is not the scenario, okay? If you got stacks, you're good if that's the deal, all right? But it's the point. It's how you approach your stack. What you do with that, all right? That's the situation. So it is not a sin to be rich. What is it? But the desire to be. Why? Because the desire says, stuff is going to make me happy. Stuff is going to save me. Stuff is going to fulfill me. Stuff is going to give me purpose. No. We have a God who will never come and go like stuff does.
Amen.
And we have a God who can help us beyond what stuff can do. Bigger and better than anything else. We have a God who will help us. And will never come and go. Help us better than anything else. But listen, you will never learn to be happy if you value your stuff more than your Savior. And that's what we all have to think about. Something I got to check myself with. Listen, you will never be happy if you value your stuff more than your Savior. You have to know the difference. There's this, I don't know if you've anybody seen fake bills and counterfeit money? Not Monopoly money, nothing like that, all right? But have you ever seen some fake money? Some of us may have seen. I don't know if you've ever had an experience where you had to go pay for something, right? And you realize they didn't take that $20 bill, that $100 bill because it was fake. I'm like, I got it from the bank. I don't know. So some people have experiences like that. Well, what's amazing is the people who can tell the difference. There's somebody who you can put a fake dollar bill in their hand, and within a second or so, they'll oh, that's fake. But you and I will look at it and be like, that looks so real though. I mean, it's the same glossiness, the same little thing here. I mean, you and I would look at a fake and a counterfeit, and you and I would have, it would be a guessing game. Flip the coin, which is which. That would be because it's too impossible. But for somebody who knows, you put it in their hands, and they can tell immediately, oh, that one's fake. Now, do you know how those people can learn how to spot a counterfeit bill? It's not because they study counterfeit money. They study the real thing. They look at it, they touch it, they feel it. It's tangible. And then they touch the real thing so much that the second something fake comes in their presence, oh, wait, that one's wrong. That one's not it. There's something different here. That one's not right. Guys, to be happy is the same thing. There are so many things that offer counterfeit hope in this world. Counterfeit joy. That's the stuff. The love of money will offer you counterfeit joy. Counterfeit happiness. How can you tell the difference between something that's counterfeit joy and something that's going to lead you to true joy? Well, again, study the real thing. The more you get to know Jesus, the more you get to know Jesus, the more you experience His goodness, the more you experience His love, the more you get to know Christ, the second the world puts something in your hand and says, hey, this will make you happy, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, something's not right. Something's not right here. Something's not right. Something's not right. This is counterfeit joy. This is counterfeit. This is going to lead me to place my faith in stuff, not in my Savior. And so you need to know, the more you know Christ, the more you can identify the things that rob you of joy while promising to make you happy. But that's why, guys, we need to then refocus our hearts. We need to refocus on what we view and how we view stuff, how we view things. Despite our circumstances, guys, we can always be happy. This is an amazing thing that is beyond what Paul was saying. Like, so many people thought, hey, if it's going good in your life, that means you're doing well with God. But if things are going bad, that means you're sinning somewhere. No, it's different. Just because bad things happen doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person, and vice versa. You can have good, this is dangerous, you can have good things happen in your life. It doesn't mean you're all right. So you have to be careful. So despite our circumstances, guys, we can learn to be happy because we have a helper who is Jesus Christ. And He is more and He is better than what you and I realize. And we will never be happy until we realize all that we have in Him. That's why we need to refocus our hearts. And I want to give you a question that I want you to think about this week. And it's this. Is my happiness rooted in my stuff or in my Savior?
Amen.
Think about that. Let me tell you how you know. Let's do a little assessment here. How do you know your happiness is rooted in your stuff, not in your Savior? Easy. The more stuff you have, the happier you are. The less stuff you have, the sadder you are. Right there. So, for example, if your bank account is growing and growing, when you get paid, if you're the happiest when the check clears, right? When you get deposited, like, hey, payday, right? And when you're the happiest on payday, and then at the end of the month or at the end of the cycle, you're like, oh, I hope I don't get those, I hope that the tolls don't go through right now, like you're waiting for that one thing, like, no, I can't do anything. And so if your joy fluctuates with your bank account, your happiness is rooted in stuff. Now, it doesn't mean that, okay, can you be anxious when you got $5, right? You got to pay for groceries or whatever. It's bigger than that. If your joy is attached to your stuff, it's going to go up and down. But here's the beautiful thing, that when your joy is attached to Christ, despite the ups and downs in life, you can have peace. That doesn't change. Despite the ups and downs, you can have this confidence that doesn't go away because you have a God who's here to help. You have a God who's here to encourage you, to give you strength. And so ask yourself, is my happiness rooted in my stuff? You know what some of you are going to have to do? And I don't know, I'm just saying. That means that some of you probably are going to have to work less. How many people, we all know these, I've done this. So many of us work, we know people who just work their bones, right? What is that phrase? They work to the bone, I guess I said it right. They work to the bone, they overwork. Why? Because they want to provide for their family things that they didn't have. Stuff and all these things, which is great. That's an awesome desire for you to be a blessing. That's a great, at least your heart's in the right spot. But listen, if your happiness is rooted in your stuff, listen, sometimes your kids don't need more stuff, they need more you. Mom and Dad, you can work a second job so they can have a bang out Christmas. But what if you didn't get that second job and you spent just more time with them this Christmas? that's better than anything that you can buy at Walmart or Amazon. Hey, you gotta return it. They don't like it. You know, like, listen, for some of you, it might mean I might need to work less to spend more time with family, to spend more time with God. Because if your happiness is rooted in your stuff, you're going to want more stuff. That means you're going to want to work more. For some of you, maybe you need to be more generous. Maybe you're accumulating stuff too much, rather than looking around and saying, what can I do for others? For some of you, if your happiness is rooted in stuff, right there, if I just told you being generous, and you went, huh? Right there, your happiness is rooted in stuff. Generous. It's hard. If you just had that little, the back of your hair just went, right when I said, give. I'm like, you just probably like, your butt cheeks probably just clenching that wall a little bit harder. No, not today. I was like, no, you ain't taking my money. I was like, look, I ain't telling you what to give. I'm just saying. You got to think about that feeling that you have right now. For some of you, you may have to work less. For some of you, you might have to give more. Others, all of us, should repent for maybe thinking about wanting more stuff than wanting more of God. It's something we have to own up to. Sometimes we focus on wanting more stuff, more popularity, more this, more that, rather than wanting more of God. It's something we need to repent of. But listen, guys, Jesus gives us the perfect example of joy rooted in something greater than stuff. In fact, in the book of Hebrews, in the one we just read, the author in the previous chapter makes this amazing statement and says that Jesus, with the hope that was with the joy that was set before him, the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. Listen about that, about being content. He was happy. He could see that if by my suffering on the cross, other people are going to have so much joy because they're going to have their sins forgiven, and they're going to be filled with the presence of the living God. And so he was happy about what was going to happen in the future, not now in the moment, because now in the moment he was kind of going through a situation. He was having nails put through his wrists and a crown of thorns over his head. He was beaten and his back all ripped. But even in the most gruesome moment in his life, Jesus was content. Because he knew why he was doing it for. He had a bigger picture than the moment. He had a bigger picture than this. Guys, if we could view beyond this world, beyond tomorrow, we can see that, man, by the life that we live, in pursuing God, circumstances might not be the most ideal. God is doing something. And our joy can be constant despite chaos in our lives. Our joy can be constant despite the chaos. And so I ask, is your happiness rooted in stuff? What are you looking towards? What are you looking towards? Is your happiness rooted in your stuff, or is your happiness rooted in your Savior? And think of Jesus, guys. Listen, Jesus was generous. Jesus was generous with what he could do. And he was generous to the point that he gave all of himself for me and for you. Why was Jesus generous? Because of his love for us. Jesus suffered on that cross. Why? So you and I, he suffered temporarily. So you and I wouldn't have to suffer eternally for our sins. That's what Jesus did. Jesus on the cross suffered temporarily so you and I would never have to suffer eternally for our sins. But then again, he didn't stay dead. He rose again 3 days later, accomplishing what no one else. I mean, it's one thing for like Babe Ruth to say, I'm going to hit a home run over there, upper deck, and do it. It's one thing to do that. It's another thing to say, I'm going to die about second base, turn it around, about 3 days later, just come back to me, and I'm going to just finish this walk. I'm going to hit this home run, you'll see. That's a completely different scenario, and Jesus did that. And so he suffered so you and I wouldn't have to suffer. But listen, he lives today. Do you know why? So you and I can live. He lives today so you and I can live. Live for more than just stuff. Which again, like Paul said, is temporary. You and I came into this world with nothing. We're going to leave this world with nothing except one thing. One thing. Jesus. It doesn't matter what you've done in this world or what you've accomplished or accumulated if you didn't do one thing. You know Christ. None of that matters if you don't know this one thing. That's why Paul says, nothing in my life mattered compared to having this relationship with God. So guys, I'm going to ask you this question to wrap up. Would you like to be happy? Would you like to be really happy? Despite your circumstances, despite your chaos, do you guys want to be happy? Do you want your home to be a place that's... Do you want your home to be a happy place?
Yes.
Do you want to be happy? Well then, you got to refocus. In fact, listen, if your happiness is determined by what you don't have, then you're going to focus on getting more, only to realize that enough is never enough. But if your happiness is determined by what you do have in Christ, your focus will not be to get more, your focus will be to do more. Because you will realize that Christ is enough.